If you felt like you've been on autopilot for a really long time, you're leaning more into the habits that don't really serve you. So maybe you're having a lot more caffeine than you used to, maybe you're drinking more alcohol, surrounding yourself with the people that you kind of already know don't really bring out the best in you and you don't feel your best around. You're not keeping consistent with your fitness routine and you're kind of looking back at this past version of yourself. For me, that was very much a 2020 version of myself, wondering where on earth has she gone? This could be going on for a really long time and you're sort of wondering, how can I get out of this? Feeling incredibly stuck. I have been there and I totally feel you, and in this video I want to go through the mindset practices and shifts that have really helped me to get from 0 to 1 and to get out of feeling that way of stuck and to totally reinvent yourself from the inside out. And that ripples out into not just your mental capacity and mental space, but into your physical reality. So your body, mind, everything is so connected. So welcome back to episode 4 of this Reinvention Diaries series. This could be the most important part of this Reinvention Diaries because this has really changed the way I look at food, changed my relationship with food. So I've broken this down into a 7-step process that isn't the easiest, but it's not as complex as I feel like I once thought it would be. So I thought we could go through it step by step. I was in a space where I started meditating and had my biggest kind of transformation in 2020, which was 4 years ago. I spent a lot of the last 2 years comparing myself to a 2020 version of myself, but I wasn't actioning the habits. I'd got distracted with a lot of other things and negative thought patterns sort of started coming in, and I feel like I didn't address them at that moment. So it's kind of compounded over time. Over this past 6 months, I've really been working on myself, going really deep. I started with a therapist for one, doing daily journaling and just unpacking a lot that I feel like I was carrying for a long time. There's a lot to the mindset because we can sometimes right, I want to change my body, I want to get in like the best shape of my life, but if your mindset isn't in the right place, oh my gosh, it's going to be really difficult. You might want to grab a notepad and pen for this. Make sure you've got yourself a hot drink, and starting with the first one, which is the mindset shift. So I want to start with fear. The only way to get through fear, which is where I was living in so much, caring what people thought, caring what family thought, that's what kept me so stuck. It also meant just realizing like I needed to do some sort of pivot in order to have like a mindset shift. I've moved abroad, like I've moved to Dubai, I've traveled quite a lot, and I felt really discombobulated. And if you've ever moved cities, towns or whatever, it's hard because you don't have your support system and it can feel confusing. And obviously you can have friends when you move abroad, but it's so different to having like those deep rooted friends that you've had since you were younger, or family. Like you just can't really compare a lot of those connections. And with a pivot, it requires a sacrifice, and it's not always a good sacrifice. So for you watching this, it could actually mean you are in a place where you've moved somewhere, or you're in a job or something where you're just not happy and you know you're not happy, but the sacrifice would be in order for you to quit that job, you'd have to say move home with your parents or do something that's a lot more less undesirable, but that is the cost. And the minute that you kind of let go, so for me that meant letting go of certain people that I'd taken on work-wise, that I'd clung on for, didn't have maybe like good working relationships with, or it just the synergy wasn't there, but I was clinging on for the comfort and the safety and not wanting to let someone down, for example, and that kept me stuck for so long, and it was all rooted around fear. The minute you cut that tie, and it's so painful and so hard, is the minute that you literally, it's like another door just automatically opens. Might not be straight away, but I promise you, any experience where I've had of this, it's just opened things up right away. A lot of the time it's only when you're most uncomfortable, as in the discomfort has got so high that you just can't ignore it anymore. Accepting and realizing that I was taking on a lot of other people's opinions and beliefs as my own, and I just couldn't actually hear my voice. You know, sometimes when you're like, what is my opinion on this? It was really hard to actually find my opinion. So this was when I really thought, right, I need to make some big changes. So that was the first step, which is having the awareness around what needs to change, what really needs addressing. And from that point, this is when you can make working towards these next steps. So second step, having discipline. So this is kind of linked to other people's opinions. I've kind of taken on other people's opinions around nutrition, food, fitness, even though like I've got my own experiences and we're all so unique, have different body types, do better on different macro splits. For example, like I might do really well on a higher fat macro split, like higher fat, higher protein. You might do better on a higher carb, higher protein macro split, for example. Like it is so unique, and I'd kind of taken on other people's perceptions and not wanting to kind of like express my own opinion, which just makes you feel so blocked because you're not being your authentic self, or like you feel like you can't speak your truth. For example, you can get fitness fitness results without prioritizing your nutrition. Or I'd kind of taken, you know, like the 80-20 rule and taken that to the extreme, as in like there was just no discipline. So no discipline around my food, nutrition, didn't like make any kind of like sacrifices with food. And there's a time and place, but there's a fine line between just not looking after yourself, which is where I was definitely coming from. Discipline is the highest form of self-love. I've only changed from having discipline. I feel like I've unlocked a new version of myself that I never knew could ever exist, because discipline's been something that I've struggled with since day dot in every aspect. Like I used to really struggle with getting up early in the morning. Like I just, you know, when you just look at people and you're like, how do you actually get up when your alarm goes off? Like that was something I struggled with for years. Like I just would snooze my alarm. It still creeps in every now and then. And the same with exercise. Like I always used to look at people and be like, how do they get to the gym at the exact same time every day and not skip a day? And it was just mind-boggling to me. And the same with food. Like I would say I'd eat really well in the morning, but nighttime would come around, I'd be making, you know, like a dessert or something at most nights. Like it wouldn't just be a few nights, it'd be most nights. You don't just wake up one day and you're like, oh gosh, I don't really recognise myself. All my habits had kind of crept up over time, not just a few months, years. And then I looked in the mirror one day and I just thought, I literally don't recognise you. I don't resonate with anything in my environment, the friends I have, the gym I go to, literally every aspect. I just thought, this just doesn't feel right. And I feel like I tried to ignore and try and just like positive think about things and like make things better or like make things feel better, but I just wasn't addressing the root of things. So that definitely came down to discipline and just getting really clear, like thinking on a piece of paper. I just wrote down like, what is this version of myself, like what does she do day to day, and really just getting as specific as possible. This is exactly the process that I go through inside Flowness as well. Like I take you through it step by step. Third one has been accepting life is supposed to be messy and fun. This is one that we just, it's so easy to forget, isn't it? That like you just look at the people and their lives just look so smooth sailing and you think, oh, if only I could wake up and like just do that and not have to worry about my washing that's been in the drum for the past 4 days that I've put on about 3 times. You've got certain friends maybe who don't work at all and you just think, oh, wouldn't it be nice just to wake up and not have that? Or you sometimes think, imagine if I just woke up, if I had X amount of money in the bank, I would have no worries. When in reality, every single person has their problems. Like it's hard to be disciplined, but it's also hard not to be disciplined. Can you imagine not working, for example? Like, can you imagine what you'd wake up feeling like? Purposeless. You'd probably be looking at someone who is like focused on their passion, their job or whatever, and be thinking, oh, I wish I had something like that. Say if you have been in amazing shape, but it was maybe 4 years ago or 10 years ago or a year ago. For me, that was, I'm thinking, wait, I used to really meditate. I used to be really connected and I felt like I was thriving maybe at a certain time. And then how have I got so far from that? Like you kind of get stuck in this like, oh, because I've achieved X once, I should be able to achieve that again. But this is what I meant by the first point. For example, this is why I think with fat loss and weight loss, like one reason I love tracking my macros is because I have such an understanding of like how I've achieved a certain result. Whereas other ways that I think intuitive eating is also great, but I think macro counting is a really good place to start because you actually can get an understanding of how you've achieved something and you learn so much about food, you learn so much about nutrition. Whereas like say if you've lost weight at one time in your life but you don't actually know how, like how can you ever replicate that or have the confidence? Because then you kind of carry this like lack of self-belief because you've achieved something but you don't actually understand like how you've achieved X result. And this could be applied to literally anything. Whenever you've fallen off, gone off track, whatever you want to call it, don't let the shame of falling off stop you from restarting your journey again, because that is why it's called a journey. And I just want to remind you just to have more compassion and love for yourself, just like you would your best friend if they were going through it. Then the fourth one is one of my favorite analogies, which I've called the backpack analogy, is carrying unnecessary weight that we don't need to anymore. And this is really hard. It's something I'm still working on. Say if you like changed a lot over the past few years but you've not changed your circles, who you're surrounding yourself with, but you kind of notice patterns where like when you surround yourself with, it could even be family, which can be really difficult, or certain friends, you just notice that you come away from certain time with certain people and you just feel like shit and you feel thrown off and like you're questioning yourself more. Why do we keep those people in our life? Like there's no point. Like life is too short. This might sound really morbid. We are going to die at some point. You might not like that, but it's true. It keeps you very much in the present when you think a little bit like that, and like life life is just too short to have people that don't align with your values, your habits anymore, or your beliefs. They are kind of like the stones in your backpack that you're carrying around that need kind of letting go of in order for things, people, places, opportunities to then come in, and trying to also be okay with it maybe being just you and a couple friends for a while. Like, that's something that I definitely did. Your backpack isn't ever supposed to be totally empty. Like, you're not supposed to carry an empty backpack. You need friends and community, which is something that we can all kind of go a bit lone wolf on for a while. Like, maybe you've realised, like, God, I don't want these people in my life anymore, and you cut them all off. But then it's like you might have a lonely stage, and we are so wired for connection. Like, we need that friends and community. You're not meant to do this journey alone, and being around people who support you, align with you, motivate you is so important. Another reason why I have created Flowness, to create a community of people who are like-minded, because I know it can be really difficult to find in this time and when you are going through different movements. Like, for me, I found for a while a lot of my friends who I had weren't really into fitness, and I found that quite lonely because, like, say if I'd go on a girls' weekend, I wouldn't do the things that I actually wanted to do because I'd just be trying to just people please. So that's been a big part. Then the fifth thing is practices for shifting your mindset. So this is not long and lengthy, by the way, but let's start with meditation. So I started back in 2020, and I remember just thinking, the first time I ever did a meditation, I just thought, what is the point of this? It was one of my close friends that was like, oh, you are someone who needs to meditate. And I just thought, it's not for me. Very much too airy-fairy for me at the time. It's not tangible. Like, it's not like a gym result, or it's not something that you can see. I couldn't get my head around how it could be beneficial, and wow, I was so shocked how like quickly I started feeling sensations that I've never felt in my body, as in just being able to like feel so relaxed. I don't think I'd ever felt so relaxed in my life, and quickly seeing as well how it made me so much calmer. And I'd catch myself in moments thinking, oh, I haven't kind of overreacted. I'd gone through a phase of like stopping meditating, which happens, and the best and most way I've found to create a consistent ritual and habit of it is to make it really realistic. So for me, that looks like literally a 10-minute guided meditation. I always do a meditation of someone who I like the sound of their voice. Some of them I don't always connect with, but that has been one way to keep it consistent, and also bribing myself so I don't have my morning coffee before I've done my meditation, and that works an absolute treat. Like, I don't ever skip. It's something I do as soon as I wake up, when your brain's in that really nice state. Like, I feel like I have my best ideas afterwards. But these are the practices that just bring you back into alignment with yourself. And in a morning when it's just so easy to go grab your phone, start scrolling, you lose half an hour between when you've gone to the toilet and you're just looking at other people's lives, and you're not really like connected to yourself. And I think this is where this big disconnection comes in. Like, we're so disconnected from our bodies and our minds that it's hard to even sometimes think, what do I actually want? It brings you right back to just living in the present rather than always thinking of the past or the future. Second thing has been journaling. So I do a mixture of just a little brain dump, which I'll just have pen and paper, or even my phone notes some days, and then I have my journal prompts. I have got something that I'm working on where you'll be able to get my prompts. Hopefully by the time this video is out, you'll be able to get it in the link in this description. But the prompts are centered around a lot of gratitude, daily prioritizing. You know, if you find yourself just always focusing on like the little tasks rather than actually getting to the things that move the needle the most, so it's all centered around that. And those prompts have just kept me in check every single day. My focus is going on the right places. And if you're someone who's just sporadic and you feel like you're just working on a million and one things all the time, or like you never get a minute to yourself, you would really benefit from this. The sixth one is finding and embracing your authenticity and power. If you're watching this, I feel like you've forgotten how limitless you are, for one, and also you are not standing in your power, and it's time to step fully, wholly, unapologetically into yourself. Oh my god, I sound like one of those like spiritual gurus at this point. You know, when you hear someone and they'll be like, oh, just be yourself, and it's like, what the fuck does that even mean? What does that even mean? Like, it's really unhelpful, isn't it? Penny drop moment for me was realizing no one has gone through the same shit as you. No one has gone through the same grief, the same losses, the same childhood. No one has the same lens. Like, everyone has a different map. So picture your map is going to be different to my map, for example. You've lived in different places. You've seen the world through like so many different lenses. This is what your uniqueness is. So whatever you bring, like, you could be doing the exact same thing as me, but what you bring will always be different because you're bringing your unique map with you. Does that make sense? And this is also why I think there is so much room for all of us, and it really winds me up when people get competitive or people say, oh, so and so's like copy me or whatever. Like, let them them, because there's enough for all of us. There really is. And I think having that confidence, I've not always had that, by the way. Like, I definitely will suffer with that at times, and it's part of being human, but that is the ultimate goal, to just be so unbothered by what anyone else is doing and just being totally in your own lane, pushing out my comfort zone and being scared. Like, I've done a lot of stuff, especially public speaking wise. I flipping don't like the word hate, but I really struggle with public speaking. Just like when I ever first led my first fitness class, picture this. So we're laid out on these mats, and I thought it was going to be a class of 3 people. I think it was the second class I've ever taught, and I think there were about 12 that came out. That's a big jump. And I just couldn't speak. Like, I was so full of nerves. And then there were all these mats laid out, and I was like, holy shit, how am I going to lead this class? And I just couldn't get my words out. I was just stuck, which it's so funny to laugh back at now. They were really nice because they didn't say anything, but I just said, right, on your backs, as in like on the mats. Bless them, they all like laid on their backs, but they must have been thinking, what on earth is this woman? What is this woman telling me to do? Or like this, I hadn't even introduced myself. We all experience fear, and you can only get too confident through working through that. Just the same as like, I remember when I first did my first YouTube video, and oh my god, it was the cringiest thing you've ever seen. You want to be doing the stuff that is making you shake and quiver, because you know that's out your comfort zone and where the growth is. Like, think how high you feel after doing those things. Whilst we're on that, getting evidence of things that you have done that have been out your comfort zone. It can literally be as small. It could be, I went to a cafe and got a coffee on my own. Like, say if you find it hard to go places on your own, having a bank of it. I store mine on Notion, and I take screenshots. It can be to do with money, it can be to do with your fitness journey, like small wins and proof, so that the minute, you know, when you have those doubts, and we all have them, it's certain times of the day. I find toward the end of the day, I feel like that's when my kind of like creepy, darker or like doubtful thoughts come in, and I just like having my bank of evidence where I can go back and look at and have it accessible. And I think when you're trying to build confidence, that's really important to have. Finding my authenticity as being like getting out of my comfort zone, even with my hair. Like, I haven't worn my hair like this naturally wavy since I was like 8 years old, and I'm 26, and this is my natural hair that I've straightened every single day. With the hair and with your style, it's so freeing. I've tried new makeup styles, and I've just got out of my comfort zone that way, and it just feels nice to be creative, nice to feel unblocked. And then I want to play this poem. It's by Marianne Williamson, and it's so flipping powerful. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your plain small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. How beautiful is that, for one? And the 7th step is creating accountability and action, which is, it's the hardest one, isn't it? And the only person that can create accountability for yourself is you making the decision to show up for yourself, not just for next week or for the month, but every day, making sure whatever you commit to is something you can sustain, rather than setting out these expectations of like doing these mad long lists that you just can't maintain. Like, if you're someone who's been in that cycle of constantly signing up to the next new thing but never really following through, like, just making that decision with yourself. Start today, make the action. You need to have that skin in the game, which is the only way I've found that I've ever seen results. So creating accountability for myself, investing in myself. For me, checking photos for my fitness results, that's the quickest way that I've seen results, for example, because it's uncomfortable at first. Like, I remember the first one I ever took was painful because I just didn't like what I saw. Fitness is like more than just your physical, and it's all connected, but I was kind of disregarding that. And this is also why it's important to have a community. You do not need to do this alone. This is exactly why I've created Flowness, which is where we're doing daily acts of flowness that have totally changed my life since we started them, which will be nearly 2 months ago now. And basically, whenever we do a new challenge, so at the minute we have the Lean and Aligned challenge starting this month, which is an 8-week workout program, and it includes daily accountability. So we do the act of flowness, which is where we check in every single day with other flowy girlies who are doing the same challenge, for example, and we share what we've done for our mindset, for our physicality. I'll pop them on the screen so it's easy to explain, but it's such a nice space because we're all so like-minded, like scarily, and what's amazing is that we're all from totally different paths, but we've got a lot of the same values in common, and it's been a really nice way to connect with other girlies. Like, I feel like I have my new best friends. You are wanting that accountability, if that is something that you've really struggled with and you've never followed through with anything, I couldn't recommend that more. And with Action, remember that it's not going to feel smooth. I don't think anything I ever do kind of feels smooth, whether that's like launching a business or posting an Instagram picture, literally anything as small or as big, or talking to someone new. Like, it's never going to feel smooth. It's never always going to go right. Let's say if you work out for a few weeks and like you're not seeing the results. Oh, it's so common. People give up at like week 4, week 5 of a new fitness, say a new workout program, because they're not seeing results. Like, it takes like 8 weeks to see real physical changes and to notice things. Like, obviously within 2 weeks you can see digestion sort of changes and like your bloating will be decreased, but to see real change, it's beyond that. Like, I found 4 weeks was a real point where I'd kind of start doubting, or I think, right, I'm going to tweak this, or maybe the workout program's not working, when really it's just not being consistent for long enough. And anything worth having takes grit, determination, as you already know. A week's not long enough for anything. Like, give yourself enough time and you'll soon see and feel the results. There's no secret, it is just literally in there. I hope you really enjoyed this video, and it's been quite a deep one, hasn't it? But I feel like it's necessary and I really wanted to put that out there. I hope you're enjoying this reinvention series. It's not about perfection, it's just about progress, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. I'd love you to stick around by subscribing. Thank you for being here and I appreciate you.